One of the most common misconceptions about personal growth and life transformation is that it requires dramatic, life-altering actions or massive amounts of time and energy. This belief often leads to burnout, procrastination, and frustration when the idealized vision of change doesn't match the reality of daily life. But what if the secret to real transformation isn't in doing more, but in doing less consistently? The truth is, small efforts done repeatedly outweigh large efforts done occasionally. Think of physical fitness. You wouldn't expect to become fit by going to the gym for 8 hours once a month. Instead, the people who see results are those who show up day after day, even if only for 30 to 60 minutes at a time. The same principle applies to personal development, emotional healing, and mental clarity. An hour a day, practiced with intention, becomes a powerful tool, not because of the quantity of time, but because of the rhythm it introduces into your life. Consistency introduces stability. In a world that constantly pulls our attention in different directions, carving out 1 hour a day for focused personal work is an act of self-respect and structure. It becomes an anchor. This hour acts like a reset button, allowing you to return to yourself amidst the noise and demands of everyday life. It sends a message to your mind: I am committed to my own development. Why is consistency so effective? It's because the brain thrives on repetition. Habits are not formed by big efforts. They are formed by doing the same thing over and over until the neural pathways become so well trodden that the behavior becomes automatic. Whether it's practicing gratitude, learning to redirect negative thoughts, reading for personal insight, or working on emotional healing, repetition is the mechanism that cements change. Doing something once in a while is not enough to create internal or external transformation. But doing something every single day, even in a small way, teaches your brain a new way of operating. Moreover, consistent action builds self-trust. When you make a promise to yourself to spend 1 hour a day on your growth and you follow through, day after day, you begin to believe in your ability to keep your word. This trust in yourself becomes a quiet, powerful force. It influences how you approach challenges, how you handle setbacks, and how you carry yourself in the world. It's not just about achieving goals. It's about becoming the kind of person who follows through. Intensity, on the other hand, often creates an illusion of progress. It feels good in the moment. You might have a burst of motivation and decide to meditate for 3 hours, write 10 journal pages, or plan a new life direction all in one sitting. But without follow-up and consistency, those intense moments are like sparks without fuel. They light up briefly and fade just as quickly. Intensity without structure does not lead to long-term change. It creates a pattern of stop-start effort that can be more discouraging than motivating. There is also an emotional benefit to choosing consistency. When you show up for yourself every day, even in a small way, you reduce internal chaos. Your mind learns that there is a safe, predictable space in your life for reflection, growth, and renewal. That stability is incredibly calming, especially in a world where unpredictability often rules. Over time, this daily practice becomes not just a task, but a source of comfort and strength. It's also important to recognize that consistency allows for compound growth. Each day builds on the last. 1 hour today might not feel like it changes much, but over weeks and months, that time adds up to hundreds of hours of focused effort. Each small insight, each practice, each repetition accumulates until the change becomes visible, not only to you, but to others around you. Just like water wearing away stone, consistent effort gently but powerfully reshapes your inner and outer world. In summary, consistency over intensity isn't about lowering your standards, it's about raising your effectiveness. It's not about doing everything at once, but about doing something every day. That hour becomes a habit, that habit becomes a mindset, and that mindset becomes a way of life. Your thoughts are not passive reflections of reality. They are active participants in shaping it. What you consistently think, say, and believe creates the foundation for how you experience the world. That's why dedicating even just 1 hour a day to consciously working on your mindset can lead to significant changes over time. This isn't simply positive thinking. It's the practice of becoming aware of your internal narrative and deliberately choosing thoughts that support your growth and well-being. The human brain is an incredibly adaptive organ. Through a process called neuroplasticity, it reorganizes itself based on experience. This means your patterns of thought are not fixed. They can be rewired. When you spend time daily reinforcing positive beliefs and affirming thoughts, you're actively rewiring your brain to support a healthier, more empowered version of yourself. Affirmations are a practical tool in this process. They are short, positive statements that declare a desired state or belief. For example, saying, "I am capable of achieving my goals," or "I deserve love and respect," might seem simple, even superficial. But when practiced consistently with intention, these statements begin to influence your subconscious mind. Over time, they help dismantle limiting beliefs and replace them with supportive ones. It's important to note that affirmations are not wishful thinking. They are tools of mental conditioning. Just like physical muscles grow with repetition and resistance, your mental and emotional muscles grow stronger the more you reinforce healthy thoughts. If for years you've believed that you're not good enough, not smart enough, or not worthy, those beliefs have become embedded. But they're not permanent. With daily attention, you can challenge and change them. In your dedicated hour each day, you might start by identifying the negative thoughts that dominate your inner world. What do you say to yourself when you make a mistake, when you look in the mirror? When you face a challenge, becoming aware of these automatic thoughts is the first step. Then you consciously replace them with more supportive alternatives. For instance, if your mind says, "I always mess things up," you might reframe that with, "I am learning and growing through every experience." The point is not to deny reality, but to reframe it in a way that empowers rather than discourages. You're training your mind to see possibility rather than limitation. This process also builds emotional resilience. When your thoughts are dominated by fear, guilt, or self-doubt, your emotions tend to follow. But when you actively feed your mind with thoughts of self-acceptance, courage, and potential, you begin to experience emotions that support your growth. Peace, confidence, hope. These aren't just fleeting feelings. They are states that can be cultivated through consistent mindset work. An hour a day focused on mindset doesn't have to be rigid or complicated. It might include reading empowering material, listening to motivational recordings, repeating affirmations aloud, writing them in a journal, or even meditating on them silently. The method matters less than the intention behind it. The goal is to develop a mental environment that supports the life you want to live. This practice also affects how you interact with others. When your inner voice becomes kinder, more patient, and more compassionate, it naturally begins to reflect in your external relationships. You become more understanding, less reactive, and more aligned in your communication. In this way, mindset work isn't only about personal change, it's also about improving your impact on the world around you. Another powerful aspect of affirmations and mindset training is that they help you stay aligned with your goals. When life becomes chaotic, it's easy to lose focus. But your hour each day can be a time of mental recalibration, a time to remember what you're striving for and why it matters. This clarity can make the difference between drifting through life and moving through it with purpose. Lastly, the practice of affirmations instills a deep sense of self-responsibility. It reminds you that while you may not control everything that happens to you, you do control how you respond. You do control the thoughts you allow to take root in your mind, and that power, used wisely, can create incredible transformation. In short, 1 hour a day spent training your mind through intentional thought and affirmation can gradually shift the foundation of your entire life. It's not fast, it's not flashy, but it's deeply effective. With time, consistency, and heart, your mindset becomes not just a tool for change, it becomes the change itself. In the fast-paced, achievement-oriented world we live in, self-care is often misunderstood. It's seen as a luxury, an occasional treat, or even a sign of weakness. But in truth, self-care, when practiced regularly and intentionally, is one of the most essential components of personal growth and long-term well-being. Taking 1 hour each day to engage in self-care isn't about escaping from life. It's about strengthening yourself so that you can fully engage with it. True self-care is not simply bubble baths, scented candles, or indulgence. It is a ritual of restoration, a structured commitment to tend to your own emotional, mental, and physical needs. When practiced daily, self-care becomes an act of self-respect and a way to build inner stability in a chaotic world. It is a reminder that your needs matter and that your well-being is not a side task, but a foundation for everything else in life. Spending 1 hour a day on self-care reclaims time from external demands and redirects it inward. It is a way of saying, I matter, I am worth showing up for. This message, repeated daily through action, begins to shift your internal self-image. You are no longer someone who is always surviving, constantly giving, or perpetually exhausted. You become someone who nurtures, heals, and invests in themselves with care and intention. The benefits of this practice extend far beyond the hour itself. Regular self-care builds emotional resilience. When you give yourself time each day to decompress, reflect, and recalibrate, you create a buffer between life's stressors and your response to them. You stop reacting impulsively and begin responding thoughtfully. You become less fragile and more grounded, less scattered and more centered. Self-care rituals can take many forms, and the most effective ones are those tailored to your individual needs. For some, it might be gentle movement like yoga or stretching. For others, it could be quiet time in nature, deep breathing exercises, or simply drinking tea in silence. Some may find comfort in journaling, creative expression, or spiritual practices. The activity matters less than the quality of presence you bring to it. What distinguishes self-care as a ritual rather than just a habit is the mindset behind it. A ritual is done with awareness, with intention, and with respect. It becomes a sacred time, however simple the activity might be. Over time, this daily ritual creates a sense of predictability and safety in your internal world. It becomes a place you can return to no matter what's happening externally. Making self-care a daily priority also strengthens your sense of agency. You stop waiting for someone else to give you permission to rest, to heal, to feel joy. You begin to take ownership of your well-being. You realize that no one else can meet your needs as effectively as you can when you are attuned to them. This shift in perspective is empowering. It breaks the cycle of dependency and puts you back in the driver's seat of your life. Moreover, practicing self-care daily teaches others how to treat you. When you respect your own boundaries, time, and energy, you set a standard. People begin to notice that you value yourself, and they are more likely to mirror that respect. This isn't selfishness, it's healthy modeling. You become an example of balanced living, showing that taking care of oneself is not only acceptable but essential. It's also important to recognize that daily self-care fuels your ability to give and serve others. You cannot pour from an empty cup. When you're depleted, your presence becomes fragmented and reactive. But when you are nourished, you show up fully. You listen better, respond with more compassion, and bring greater clarity to your relationships and responsibilities. In this way, self-care is not separate from productivity or connection. It enhances both. Finally, self-care as a ritual creates consistency in healing. Growth is not always linear. There will be days of setbacks, confusion, or fatigue, but when you have a daily self-care practice, you create a structure that gently supports you through those fluctuations. You're no longer depending on external circumstances to feel okay. you are creating internal conditions that help you remain steady through change. In summary, dedicating 1 hour a day to self-care is not about indulgence. It is about survival, strength, and self-respect. It is a daily reminder that you are worthy of time, attention, and tenderness. Over time, this practice becomes more than just something you do. It becomes part of who you are, and that, in itself, can be life-changing. Every meaningful action begins with a thought. But not just any thought, an intentional one. Intention is the bridge between your desires and your reality. It is the conscious aim behind your choices, and when you apply it deliberately, especially for 1 dedicated hour each day, it transforms ordinary actions into purposeful, life-changing experiences. At its core, intention is about clarity and direction. Without intention, even good habits can become mechanical and disconnected from purpose. For example, exercising or meditating every day is helpful, but when you do it mindlessly, its power weakens. The difference between going through the motions and creating genuine transformation lies in whether you are acting with intention. What do you want this hour to do for you? How do you want to feel after it? What are you moving toward when you begin your daily hour with a clearly defined purpose, such as healing, learning, growing, or grounding yourself? You begin to take charge of your time, your mindset, and your energy. Even simple acts like journaling or stretching gain emotional and psychological power when they are aligned with a meaningful goal. Intention brings depth. It transforms time spent into time invested. This is why beginning your hour with a moment of reflection or a small ritual is so powerful. Take a breath and ask yourself, why am I here right now? What do I hope to cultivate? This simple act of awareness transforms the next 60 minutes into a focused, meaningful experience, rather than just another task on your to-do list. Intention also serves as a filter. In a world filled with distractions and endless information, not every activity brings value. But when you're clear about your purpose for that hour, whether it's emotional healing, spiritual connection, skill development, or peace of mind, you can choose more wisely. You prioritize what aligns with that purpose, and you let go of what doesn't. This level of clarity reduces wasted effort and enhances the effectiveness of your practice. Beyond time management, intention affects your internal state. When you engage in activities with conscious purpose, you activate your internal alignment, the sense that your thoughts, actions, and values are in harmony. This alignment creates a powerful sense of peace and self-trust. It assures you that you are on the right path, even if progress seems slow. For example, imagine you're spending your hour doing breath work. If your intention is to calm your nervous system, each inhale and exhale carries more significance. Your mind understands the reason behind the action and your body follows. This amplifies the effect of the practice because you're not just doing breath work, you're engaging in a meaningful act of care that serves a clear goal. Setting daily intentions can also make your hour more adaptable. Life isn't static, and neither are your needs. Some days you may need emotional release. Other days you may crave mental focus or spiritual connection. By tuning in each day and asking, what do I need right now? You create a living practice, one that evolves with you rather than staying rigid. Furthermore, intention empowers your sense of authorship. When you choose your focus deliberately, you are writing your own story. You are not just reacting to life's demands. You are creating your own narrative, one choice at a time. This feeling of control of being the designer of your day is essential for long-term change. It shifts you from being a passive observer of your life to being its active creator. Even on difficult days, intention gives your hour structure and strength. There will be times when motivation is low, energy is drained, or emotions are heavy. But when you have an intention, it becomes a guide. It whispers, this hour still matters. It's still for you. And often, it's those challenging days that turn into the most meaningful ones, because you showed up with purpose, even when it wasn't easy. In the long term, daily intention setting cultivates a powerful mindset. You begin to bring that same clarity into other areas of your life, your relationships, your work, your decisions. You start to ask, what am I really aiming for here? And that simple question leads to more thoughtful choices, more aligned actions, and a more fulfilling life. In conclusion, spending 1 hour a day on yourself is powerful, but spending 1 hour a day with intention, that's transformational. Intention takes the ordinary and makes it sacred. It gives each action meaning, each minute value, and each choice a sense of purpose, and that, over time, becomes the foundation of a truly changed life. Change is not created by intensity alone. It is created by consistency. When it comes to personal growth, healing, or self-mastery, it's not what you do once in a while that changes your life. It's what you do every day, even when it feels small or insignificant. This is why spending 1 hour a day on your growth is so impactful. Not because 1 hour is dramatic, but because it is repeated day after day, like a drumbeat leading you forward. Consistency is often underrated because it doesn't always feel exciting. There's a temptation to chase dramatic breakthroughs or overnight transformation, but real and lasting change happens gradually. Like water shaping stone, daily effort applied with care and purpose begins to transform your inner and outer world in ways that are subtle at first and profound over time. One of the most important effects of consistency is that it builds momentum. Think of momentum like the law of energy in motion. When you start something new, whether it's journaling, learning a skill, practicing affirmations, or meditating, it might feel slow, awkward, or even frustrating. That's normal. The beginning of any transformation feels like pushing a heavy wheel that isn't ready to turn, but with daily repetition, that wheel begins to move, then it moves faster, then smoother. Eventually, it takes less effort to keep it going, and that's momentum. The first few days or weeks of any new practice are the hardest, not because you lack ability, but because you lack rhythm. Consistency creates rhythm. It gives your brain, your emotions, and your behavior a pattern to follow. Human beings thrive on patterns. When you do something every day at the same time, your body and mind begin to anticipate it. It becomes part of your natural flow, and eventually it takes less willpower to begin. You don't have to force it. You are drawn to it. This is where many people misunderstand transformation. They expect motivation to lead them, but in truth, it is discipline and repetition that build the foundation. Motivation comes and goes. Some days you'll feel inspired, energized, or clear. Other days you'll feel distracted, tired, or unmotivated. But if you keep showing up 1 hour a day, every day, you are proving to yourself that you can be relied upon. This consistency builds self-trust. When you trust yourself to show up, you also begin to believe in your capacity to change. That belief is essential. Without it, any setback can knock you down. But when you have a daily practice, an hour set aside just for you, it becomes your anchor. It grounds you during emotional storms, and it reminds you that no matter what happens externally, you are still choosing growth. Another key benefit of consistency is that it creates accumulated progress. Imagine reading for 1 hour a day. That may not seem like much, but over the course of a year, that's more than 300 hours of knowledge, insight, and mental stimulation. Imagine journaling for 1 hour a day. That's a year of self-reflection, emotional release, and self-awareness. These small actions, repeated over time, become the building blocks of massive internal change. Even more importantly, consistency makes your progress measurable. Without regularity, you may not notice how far you've come. But when you commit to 1 hour a day, you create a structure. And within that structure, you can reflect, adjust, and improve. It becomes easier to track what's working, what's shifting, and what needs more attention. You're not just working on yourself blindly, you're learning from your own process. Of course, life will interfere sometimes. You might miss a day or two, but consistency is not about perfection. It's about returning. The real power lies in the return. When you fall off track and still choose to come back, you're training yourself to value the process more than the outcome. And that mindset is what ensures long-term transformation. Over time, the hour you dedicate daily becomes more than a habit. It becomes your foundation. It supports your goals, your clarity, your emotional regulation, and your resilience. Others might see only the results, your calmness, your confidence, your growth, but you'll know it wasn't one big moment that changed everything. It was one small choice repeated with love over and over again. In summary, consistency is the quiet force that creates visible change. It turns effort into identity. It builds momentum that carries you through challenges. 1 hour a day may seem small, but when applied with consistency, it becomes the most powerful investment you can make in your future. One of the most transformative elements of dedicating 1 hour a day to yourself is the cultivation of mindfulness, the practice of being fully present and aware of your thoughts, emotions, and actions without judgment. While this concept might sound simple, its effects are profound. Mindfulness opens the door to true self-understanding, and with that awareness comes the power to make intentional changes in your life. We live in a world of constant noise, external distractions from technology, responsibilities, and demands, as well as internal noise from anxious thoughts, emotional patterns, and unconscious beliefs. In such an environment, it's easy to function on autopilot, reacting instead of responding, surviving instead of thriving. Mindfulness disrupts that automatic mode. It invites you to pause, observe, and become conscious of what's happening within you and around you. Spending just 1 hour a day in mindful reflection, whether through journaling, meditation, breathing exercises, or simply sitting in silence, allows you to step out of reactivity. You start noticing the patterns that influence your decisions, your fears, your triggers, your habitual thoughts. More importantly, you begin to recognize the gap between stimulus and response, and within that gap is your power to choose differently. Mindfulness nurtures self-inquiry. You start asking questions you might never have thought to ask before. Why do I react this way? What belief am I holding on to that no longer serves me? What emotion am I carrying that needs release? These insights don't arise from rushing through life. They come in the stillness of presence, in the quiet attention that mindfulness provides. As awareness grows, so does emotional intelligence. You begin to name your feelings accurately and understand their roots. Rather than being swept away by anger, sadness, or anxiety, you learn to sit with these emotions, observe them, and let them pass without judgment. This emotional regulation becomes one of the greatest benefits of mindfulness. It gives you the capacity to remain centered even when life becomes turbulent. Mindfulness also deepens your connection to the present moment, which is where all true transformation happens. The past is unchangeable, and the future is uncertain, but the present is where your choices reside. The more time you spend in this moment, aware and grounded, the more powerful your life becomes. You stop dwelling on what you should have done or worrying about what might happen, and instead you act from a place of clarity and intention. Dedicating 1 mindful hour daily also reshapes how you relate to yourself. You become more compassionate, more forgiving. You start to see your inner critic for what it is, a voice shaped by past pain and external expectations, not the truth of who you are. In mindfulness, you begin to listen more closely to your authentic self, the part of you that knows your worth, your values, your dreams. You connect to that inner wisdom not by force, but by gentle awareness. This hour of mindfulness becomes a mirror. It shows you what's working and what's not. It reveals when you're living in alignment with your values and when you're not. It teaches you to slow down and pay attention, not only to your thoughts, but also to your body, your breath, your intuition. This full body presence helps you make decisions that are not only smarter, but also more aligned with your deeper truth. Over time, mindfulness spills over into the rest of your life. You start bringing the same awareness to your conversations, your work, your habits. You begin noticing the beauty in ordinary moments, a smile, a breeze, a quiet pause. This presence enriches your experience of life and reduces feelings of overwhelm because you're no longer lost in your head. You're here now. Importantly, mindfulness helps you respond to life with wisdom rather than impulse. This is one of the highest forms of personal power. Instead of reacting emotionally or out of habit, you begin to respond with clarity and intention. This shift alone can change your relationships, your decisions, and ultimately your direction in life. In conclusion, 1 mindful hour a day is not just a break from stress. It is a practice of coming home to yourself. It develops the awareness needed to break old patterns, make conscious choices, and build a life that reflects who you truly are. Mindfulness is not a destination, it is a way of being, and when cultivated consistently, it becomes one of the most empowering tools for personal transformation.